I'm Henry Lynn, and welcome to Better World. Better World is an exploration of badass people doing really cool things. The more we know about this world, the better we can do in changing it. Welcome today to Fisher Stevens, actor, documentarist, one hell of a guy, and personal hero of mine from when I was 6. We'll get into that in a second. Who has a documentary, We Are Guardians, that is being premiered on June 5th, World Environmental Day. Fisher, welcome to the pod.
Thank you, Henry. I like the plants. I like the color.
It's a whole vibe in here. You know, we're doing it as best as we possibly
Very
can.
nice. Maybe it'll get some mist going and create our own little rainforest here on Canal Street in New York City.
We can get one of the, like the drum circles going. Maybe we can also get some face paint in here, just make it a real party. The large majority of the work that you've done has been incredible on the acting side, but many people do not know that you are also, I believe, an award-winning documentarist. Would you like to tell us a little bit, before we dig into the problem, about who you are and what you've done? Because we've got about 15 seconds before I break into thank you for Ben and thank you for Otto.
Well, I was raised by a mother that was arrested in 1968 protesting against the Vietnam War.
Wow.
And I was 4 years old and handing out leaflets, anti-Richard Nixon leaflets. So I
You were
grew
in the
up-
streets from a very early age.
I grew up as basically the son of an activist. And when I began acting, I was really inspired by people like Robert Redford and Harry Belafonte and people that used their voice who were famous to kind of inspire and make change for the good. And then I also started acting young, but then as I got a little older, I got a little I wanted to expand on my acting, and I started getting into documentaries by accident, really. And found the form incredible, and then thought, oh my God, this is another way to make change. So you can use your voice as an actor, but you can even use your voice more as a filmmaker. And became, I just love the form of documentary. I'm curious. I love telling stories. I love humans. I love people. And I kind of have made many different types of documentaries, both as a director and a producer. But I find telling stories in that way is really interesting. So I got involved in a film called The Cove. That was my third documentary.
And this was early. This was 2007.
2007 is when I got involved. Yes, and I got involved with that because I was a big scuba diver, and I did these crazy dives in Indonesia and in Papua New Guinea with this really cool guy named Jim Clark, who had a company called Netscape. And we came up from one of our early dives, and he was like distraught. And he's like, these corals are dead. Why are they dead? And he's a physicist, taught me about climate change, and said, I'm funding this movie about these dolphins, but you should get involved. And he got me involved in The Cove. And The Cove was about saving dolphins, but it was also about climate change, because these dolphins,
macro effects of climate change.
Yeah, because they were full of mercury.
Right.
Why were they full of mercury? Because mercury is being dumped into the oceans. And then I just, from The Cove, went on to many, many others. And the environment became my kind of one of my most important issues to tell stories about using documentary. Well, I still acted,
Yes.
still directed fiction, and did all that.
So it becomes this important medium for you to tell a story and a narrative that helps shift the public.
Yeah, and
Focus
the Cove did help stop. I mean, dolphins were killed at a much lesser rate. People stopped eating seafood
Right.
because they were worried about their mercury. I forgot to say that I became a pescatarian in like 2005, and in 2007, around the same time, I started getting really sick and feeling all these metals. And I was diagnosed having mercury poisoning.
No
so
way.
I had to get the mercury out of my body. And so that was another reason I wanted to do The Cove, because I'm like, Jesus,
Right.
this is crazy. So anyway, yeah.
So the majority of the work that you've done on the acting side has just been some of these really, really great roles, but you're the majority of the work that you've done on the documentary side has really been in service of changing larger global problems. There is a major global problem that we have that we're going to be addressing today that Fisher's new documentary is about. It is with respect to the Amazon, the world's lungs, and the massive amount of deforestation that has occurred. We on Better World usually share a lot of tragic stats about how bad a problem is, and everybody knows how bad this one is. The good news is that a study was released recently that in the last month, deforestation has declined in the Amazon by 61%, and over the last year by 40%. And that deforestation is attributed mostly to the indigenous population and their efforts in stopping illegal logging, as well as to the shift in the administration. So it sounds like it's a great time for us to discuss your newest film.
Yeah, so I filmed in the Ecuadorian rainforest. Was very inspired by a film called Crude that Steve Donziger actually ended up going to jail for. That's a whole other story. Because he fought the oil companies. He fought Chevron.
Oh, wow.
But I do recommend that film, Crude. It was made years ago, produced by Trudy Styler. Anyway, I filmed there something else, and then during COVID, I was brought a very weird long trailer of this film. It was 3 young filmmakers, 2 Americans and 1 indigenous filmmaker named Ejivan Guajajara. And I was taken with the style, and I love supporting young filmmakers, and I love the issue. And Ejivan lives in a territory that is starting to get encroached by not only the loggers, but by the cattle farmers. And
so We Are Guardians is about
the guardians who are stopping, like you said, the encroachment and fighting the loggers and the farmers from coming in on their land and just whacking down the forest.
Right.
Because of the braveness of these 3 kids, they're kids, they're in their 20s, all of them.
Oh, wow.
They actually got permission to film a group of loggers, as they're like, and it's footage you've never probably seen before. And then they make the logger human. They follow him home to his village. He's
in poverty.
He's impoverished. The real villains of the movie are not the people cutting down the trees or the people working for the big company. It's the big companies. It's Cargill. Yeah. It's JBS. There's an I would love to.
Well, before you move away from that, because you've touched on a really, really important point, there is disenfranchisement. There's a people issue here, and it's not the loggers, it's the big companies. Why are the big companies the perpetrators? Why are they the bad actors?
They're making the money. They're making the big money. It's a big, big business. So
they're incentivizing the trade of this lumber and of these resources.
Yeah. They're incentivizing it. Look, they're bad actors who are small-time farmers who are just coming in and encroaching too. But the majority of
it's market dynamics for the most part.
Yeah, it's market
demand.
It's demand. I mean, they're not the ones putting sawmills in the middle of the Amazon, in the middle of the rainforest.
They're not funding
They're not funding the
micro cities that illegally exist.
Exactly.
That's a topic that the film touches on.
Yes, touches on that. And, Cargill is a company out of Minneapolis, Minnesota. And they probably are, no one talks about them, but they're polluting probably almost as much as Chevron and Exxon and, these other companies.
Oh, yeah. PFAs came out of Minnesota. That's fact.
Well, that's what I'm saying. And I think what's great about this film is it humanizes the logger. It humanizes the little farmers. And but it also shows you how dangerous it is to be guardians.
Yes.
And how these big companies fund they give weapons.
Yes.
And
they militarize.
They militarize a group of individuals that will go in and try to kill these guardians who are trying to save their land so that they can say, fuck you.
Their government-appointed land.
Basically. Yeah. Their government-appointed land.
Yes.
Which, is finally being recognized, as you said, by the new administration.
Yes.
The old administration
Shout out to Lulu. You do great work.
Yeah, we could talk about his stance on Russia later, but
Right.
he's doing great work with the rainforest, and he acknowledges the indigenous people, that it is their land. Bolsonaro wanted to basically erase the indigenous people. That was, and you
wanted to
see
cut down the entire forest.
you see that in our film as well. You see Bolsonaro at his finest,
Yeah.
worst, yes. So anyway, yes, I was taken with the way that these people shot their early stuff. I didn't think it would take me 2.5 years of work with them. I thought we were closer when I decided to step on.
Right.
But they are incredible. They're brave. They're these Chelsea Green and Rob Grobman and Ejevan Guajajara. I just have to acknowledge them a million times. And they risked their lives, all three of them, to make this film.
Wow.
And I have such respect and
Now,
admiration.
it was so life-endangering, particularly because they were dealing with militarized groups in what is ostensibly a border dispute / micro-military conflict. Because I have only seen the first portions of the film, but these people are carrying around weapons and using weapons actively.
Yeah, but we are now, through our work and through the funding from our film and our investors, they are arming the Guardians.
Right.
And part of the thing reason we want to raise money is we want to arm them more, not only with weapons, but with drones, cameras. We want to call people out. So when you're driving down the street and there's a speed camera, you're not going to go X amount of miles over that speed limit. You'll get a ticket. What we want to do is have the ability that give them these drones with cameras, so that everything will be documented, everything will be recorded. And with the Lula administration now, Lula has put indigenous people in cabinet positions. He has given indigenous people power in the political system in the Amazon for the first time. And now
so that there will be consequences.
There will be consequences. And this film's the second part of making the movie is to help raise money and fund the surveillance and the weapons for these Guardians, so that nobody fucks.
The Guardians themselves, yes.
The Guardians themselves.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah.
So I believe it's a quarter of the world's oxygen is produced from the Amazon rainforest, and the regrowth of that rainforest is extremely difficult. So there is a compounding effect to every tree that you cut. You had mentioned also the local farmers. So I would love to discuss very briefly what their role is and whether or not there's a solution in something like agroforestry practices.
Well, yes, there is. And some of these farmers are into that, and they are trying to do that. But the problem is, the first growth Amazon, I don't know if you've ever seen a first growth forest, because they're very rare. I mean, I don't think there's any, I don't know what's left in the United States, maybe parts of these, but a first growth,
California.
Yeah, and a first growth forest is the greatest carbon sucker that exists, and it's just mind-blowing, a first growth forest. That means it has never been touched. They're just whacking the shit out of the first growth forest everywhere in the Amazon, in Indonesia, as we showed in another film I did before the flood, all around. So the idea now is not only to reforest, but to really save what's left of the first growth forests. And some of the farmers that you'll see in the film, they agree. They want to replant, right? But they are also saying, we're little. I have a wife and kids. I have a little family. We've been here for 20 years. We ain't going anywhere. So it's really interesting. Right?
So there's a macroeconomic change that I'm interested in hearing your opinion about, because it seems to come from the government level. How do you create industries that compete with the Cargills of the world, that ostensibly finance better economies that are repairing and regenerating forests?
Well, the real truth is we have to all be aware of what Cargill produces and boycott the products.
Right.
That would be the ultimate thing. I mean,
so what are some of the products that we should be boycotting?
Well, I'm not sure. I know that Cargill and JBS's big thing in the rainforest are meat JBS is the big McDonald's, but
Right.
I wouldn't say boycott McDonald's because I can't. People need to eat, and McDonald's is affordable. But you could
Right.
boycott.
There are also other solutions.
Exa-
that
you
we
could-
can we can stop meat.
We could
Right.
stop meat. We could know where, if you do buy wood, where is that wood coming from? You know, I mean, Cargill, we should look it up, but it's so deep. But I
was just looking it up, and they are the greatest greenwashing site of all time, talking about healthy agriculture systems.
Yeah, I mean, they soy in
Right.
the rainforest. You look up, I think a tremendous amount of the soy is ultimately through their subsidiaries,
Right.
Cargill.
Which is used as feed principally as well.
Feed mostly.
Yeah.
Feed and
And the fancy yogurt that I eat.
yeah, you're wonderful. Anyway, I should know more about what it is, but I do know
For
that.
the record, I'm a coconut yogurt guy.
Yeah, okay, good. That's good. Yeah, so we need to know where the food is that we're eating and where the wood that we're buying is
Right.
coming from. So, but yeah, it's you see in the film
There's
that
quite
they
a bit
have
of
cities.
education there that we have to dig into, and probably should raise a little bit more money so we can do an easy website of how this stuff trickles down.
Well, I think that's part of the goal that I would like to do with this film also is to create a website where you can, which we did on Before the Flood, when, before the flood, we were focused on the Indonesian rainforest. And for this film, when you see these giant lumber mills,
Yeah.
we want you to know what companies are
Right.
running that.
Are financing them.
Are
Yeah.
financing. When you see these giant, not the little farmer, but the giant cattle farms,
Right.
we want you to know. We did film JBS. We knew
Right.
that all that meat was going through JBS.
Right.
So that's one thing. But the other thing is replanting is important, and replanting the right plants. While we were filming, it was the first time that you see that more carbon is going up in the air out of the rainforest than going in it.
Oof.
Because what happened was the burning. So they burn.
Yes.
That's how you make a cattle ranch in the middle of a
You
rainforest.
clear cut and burn, right?
You clear cut and burn, and that burning is like a bomb going off in the air, bomb everywhere. And we a New York Times article that was one of our characters, Luciana, wrote. She has been for 8 years tracking the air in the rainforest, in this areas with these tubes, and she has been determining how much carbon is going in and how much is going out. And while we were filming for the first time, more carbon.
It became carbon positive. Yeah.
Yeah,
What a nightmare.
yeah, it was unreal. I mean, that was like we were in shock,
Right.
and that was while we were filming. So then we asked her to film her in the plane taking the readings, and that's part of the film. It's pretty awesome.
That's fucking.
She's a great character.
Talk about showing up too late to the party, huh?
Well, now it's changing again, thank God. But it's got a long way to go.
And you have to keep the Lulus of the world in office and the Bolsonaros out.
Yeah, and the Donald Trumps out because let's not go there.
No, it's
about
kind of like
Brazil.
saying Voldemort.
This is about Brazil.
The majority of the work that you've done outside of this has been incredible. So just to take a beat, Short Circuit was one of my favorite films.
Oh, thank you.
It was
Not very
absolutely-
politically correct today, I will say.
It was at the time
yeah.
absolutely great and fun, but
Yeah,
I'm
no.
sure
Now I look back going, whoa, not cool.
but you were so good.
I was young.
Yeah,
We didn't know better.
we weren't there yet.
Would never do it again.
We weren't. Well, if you look at Breakfast at Tiffany's, Andy Rooney's work was much the same.
Mickey Rooney, yeah.
Mickey Rooney,
Yeah,
thank you.
yeah, no,
Forgive
it was, but he was, anyway.
me. And a great talent.
But anyway, I'm grateful I had a job, and I love acting. What can I say?
And you made millions and millions of kids happy, so there we go.
Yeah.
We all wanted robots, and now we have them, and unfortunately, they're going to take over the world. But the AI is another conversation for a later day.
Yeah.
The work that you have done has not been alone. Do you want to discuss any of the partners that have engaged in this with you?
Well, I'd say Jim Clark is one of the most important people in my life. Kind of created Netscape, which was kind of the first search engine.
No big deal.
And he like I said, he's a physicist, he's a scientist, he's a professor, and he's the guy when we went diving on his big boat, sailboat, who taught me about climate change. He just took me aside, and for a week, basically, we'd go scuba diving, and he'd give me basically lessons on how the planet is warming, why the planet is warming, because I didn't really go to college. But I would say he, and then he funded the Cove, and that kind of was great, a great, incredible experience. That really got me into the climate work.
Right.
Yeah, so I would say, Jim, and then, this guy. I did a film on Sylvia Earle, who is kind of the female Jacques Cousteau. She has been underwater more than any other human being. Spent more time underwater, I would think, than any other, other than Jacques.
Her digits are webbed at this point.
Her digits are webbed. She's 85. She's still diving. So I made a film called Mission Blue, where I followed her, got to dive with her, and we sadly talked a lot about the dying oceans, like the dying Amazon. So first was the dying oceans.
Right. It was thematic in your career. The shift in the oceans that's been occurring.
Yeah. I mean, it was, and it was also like my beginning of my relationship with Netflix, who we were the third documentary that they ever bought.
Oh wow!
And I'm now making my sixth thing with them right now.
This documentary is going to be premiering on June 5th. When and where do we expect it to air?
We don't know. That's the idea. We do need to find distribution. So we just finished it 10 days ago for the Hot Docs Festival in Toronto. The Cannes Film Festival started this week, so it's kind of not great timing.
No.
I wish we could have submitted it to Cannes, but we weren't done.
Sometimes you can, sometimes you can't.
Sometimes you can. I am going. My wife's movie is playing in the Cannes Film Festival that I executive produce, which I'm very excited about. Which is not about the environment, but about rock and roll. It's really good. It's about Anita Pallenberg. It's called Anita, and Anita was kind of. It's a female look at rock and roll in the 60s and 70s. She was with Brian Jones, and then Keith Richards. They had 3 kids and starred in performance. She was an actress, Barbarella, and had a crazy life.
So you're real radical at heart.
She's amazing, and it's a great film. And then I have a very small part in a film in competition called Asteroid City, Wes Anderson directed. So I'm going there. I'm also speaking there at a rainforest benefit. So
Amazing.
One of our characters, Sonia Guajajara, who's a cousin of our director, Edjivan Guajajara. They all are from the Guajajara area. So we are going to show a trailer in Cannes, and I'm going to speak about the film there. So it's good. It's getting out there, but we need to find a home for it. So we just started showing it to distributors.
Okay.
And another guy that I've been making films with is Leonardo DiCaprio, and we've done. We did this movie Before the Flood, where we went all over the world together and to raise awareness of climate change. That was a broad climate change movie. We covered everything. We went everywhere, and Leo was the eyes and the guide through it. Actually, I just taught a 7th grade class yesterday at a middle school who screened it.
Leo's not the EP on this one.
Yes, and Leo. Well, we did another movie after Before the Flood. We made a movie called And We Go Green about electric car racing, Formula E.
Oh, sick.
So we made that, which is on Hulu, and then now Leo is exec producing this as well. So.
He's done some incredible work bringing this to the forefront, and it seems like a great marriage for you two because you are driving awareness in the way.
Yes. Well, no one drives it better to me than Leo, and Leo really gives a shit. And we send each other articles all the time about like we should do this and that documentary, but there's just like it's hard.
It's hard.
We want to do so much more. But
let's get back to the awareness component because I think you've nailed it. Particularly with our conversation here with Cargill, and I just want to drive the point home. The thing that every consumer can do is vote with their dollar and decide that they are going to support a good company versus a bad company and understand who is a good actor and who is a bad actor. And there are resources that we at Better World continue to put out, as does our partner Future Earth. But you, the consumer, have the power to do it. I would love to speak very briefly about what you think some of the shift in consumerism is or has to occur within the context of how we're destroying the rainforest. Because we mentioned agrosystems, we mentioned beef, we mentioned soy, but of course there are other products, and there's the other side of it. There's the good actors. How can we employ some of the agroforestry people who are making local cacao, who are making coffee, or any of these local products?
Well, I think that's going to be part 2 of this. Like we said, it's not only are we going to show the bad actors, we're going to show the good actors, how you can help, who you can help, who's doing what.
I'm giving away the sequel.
No, not the sequel, maybe the website.
Okay.
Yeah. Because that is how a lot of these indigenous people, they don't need much. You'll see. Ed Javon goes into his territory, into his tribe, and you see they don't. All they have, they do have a phone, so they do need money to pay for their phone bills. But other than that, pretty much, they don't use money. They don't.
Right.
They don't need money, and they pay for their phone by crafts,
Right.
and acai,
Right.
and local crops that they don't. It's not like they're planting. It's like it's natural to the
Right. Then they're just bartering.
forest.
Right.
And it's beautiful. I mean, they eat fish. They hunt boar. They don't go to the market and buy fish and
Right.
meat. And it's sustainable. There's plenty of fish. There's plenty of boar. It is a little scary about. They are worried about what's getting into the rivers in terms of
Mercury.
oil,
runoff.
mercury. Yeah, that is an issue. That was Crude, the other movie,
Right.
was about that, because the oil that Chevron left there.
You're really studying the entire ecosystem, aren't you?
Well, you
The
get
big
into
wheel.
it all. I mean, I don't like. I mean, I have to go. I mean, I'm making a movie now on David Beckham, so I'm like obsessed right now. That's where I'm directing that, so like that takes up 70% of my brain right now.
Wow. Okay.
But this is my passion. I don't really make a living doing
Right.
these movies.
Which is the sad thing that we should be correcting. Right?
Well, yeah. I mean,
Can a man get paid for his good work?
no. I mean, with Leo, you obviously,
Right.
if you Leo, but this movie, we do because we want to get the word out. We want.
Well, I want to focus in on that awareness, and getting the word out, because
That's why we're here.
Right. I believe that the nonprofit organization Random Good that you're associated with is doing major screenings for policymakers and politicians,
Yes.
both in the States and Brazil. Do you want to talk a little bit more outside of the armaments for the Guardians themselves, what some of the impactful things are and where we should pay attention? Because for the listeners and viewers, we want to encourage not only do you research where your goods are coming from, be knowledgeable about the bad actors and don't support them. They're really killing the planet. This is serious. It's emergency time, but also about some of the individual lobbying that they can do on their own, state, municipal, and federal levels. So what are some of the initiatives that you guys are doing for this awareness at the government policy level?
Well, we are really hooked up in Brazil. And because Lula has tapped Sonia Guajajara, who's in our film, and Puyi Tembe, who's in our film, we're going to be doing lots and lots of screenings.
We can make some real headway down there.
With Lula's going to watch the film, a lot of the administrative
The film is beautiful. Congratulations
Thank you,
again. I
thank
only watched the first portion of it, but
you got to watch the whole thing.
it is
I gotta
very-
get you the whole movie on the.
I couldn't get it working on the Apple TV. It was the whole thing.
No, I know, and also, no one has really seen it yet, so
Right.
that's part of the thing, is to get it out there.
No, June 5th. I already got a date. We're
Yeah,
there.
you're gonna see it then. I know, but I think so. When we did The Cove, one of the best things that came out of it is we made. It was before kind of the web had busted out, but we made something like a Random Good company, but it was participant.
Right.
Jeff Skoll gave us money. We made like 100,000 cards with fish to eat and not to eat.
Right.
The level of danger of mercury, for whether it's swordfish, which is a bright red, tuna fish, which is a flashing orange, mackerel, which is like a yellow,
Right.
in terms of the mercury content and the extinction content. what we need to do, what we're trying to do with this is, now that we have websites that work, hopefully,
Education resources.
is education resource with the companies and where they go. Let's be honest, right? Bolsonaro was funded by big agro,
Yes.
big oil,
Yes.
all these companies saying, we'll give you money, we'll put you in power,
Give us resources.
get rid of the indigenous.
Yep.
Let us go in. The United States is the same thing. If you look at who's funding,
We're doing this in Brazil. We're doing it in Mexico.
we're doing it everywhere.
Yep.
The fossil fuel industries run the government. I mean, Joe Biden is opening up Alaska for drilling, you know.
And claiming that it's because of energy security and all the rest.
He's also a politician and he knows. But if you look at like the climate deniers like Ted Cruz, Marco Rubio, all
not to.
Lindsey Graham, they're all funded by the oil companies.
Yes.
They are big donors.
Yes.
Agro. You know, Joe Manchin lives in West Virginia, of course. You know, he's
Coal and oil.
Yeah, coal and oil.
Heavily invested in it
It's
as well.
so sad that, but it's life. It's the way it is. So we have to acknowledge that, you know.
Yes.
And Brazil is the same way. So.
And we have to vote along those lines, and we have to be aware.
Exactly. Now there are alternatives. We know, right? There's alternatives. I know not everyone loves Beyond Meat. I know not everyone. Once in a while, it's okay to eat meat, but you don't have to eat meat that
Love
much.
a portobello burger.
I don't, but I like the Beyond.
You like the Beyond?
I like the Beyond, but
It's delicious.
and it's soy.
I do it with tacos too.
But it's pea protein. It's
Right.
not soy, so it's pea protein.
That's right.
It does take a lot of water though. There's always issues with everything. Like you could literally drive yourself crazy with
Right.
your meal.
Right.
Like Heinz ketchup. Oh, corn syrup. Where does that? Like it's anyway. We won't go there. But the point is, it's great to know and to be aware. You know.
So the big takeaways here are that awareness is really critical and key, and we want to drive it. And even just making people within your family and community aware of some of these challenges, bad actors, struggles, and solutions is helpful. Supporting the film can be done once you guys get distribution, but also via the online fundraising effort that you guys will be doing, which will be available on Better World's Instagram and Better World's site. I would also encourage everybody to take a look at randomgood.com. Org.
Yeah, or randomgood.org. They're a great
randomgood.org.
organization. Run
Great
by,
organization.
Yeah, Christopher and Randy, the Gephardts. They're amazing. These two brothers.
I also will, of course, invite you, Fisher, to talk about this again further, because there is a very, very interesting piece of content that we should be doing about the cycle of life that's in your head, because you have traveled from the oceans to the forests to the air in order to fix what is this global climate emergency, and it deserves more time. And it's incredible work. So on behalf of all of your fans and friends, thank you for all of your great work.
Oh man, my pleasure. I'm blessed to be able to do this work.
It's great work. I'm Henry Lynn, and this has been another episode of Better World. Please join us again when we talk to somebody significantly less cool and fun and not one of my childhood heroes. No, it'll still be a great time. Remember, you can do better for the world. Please educate yourself, make yourself aware, and check back with us for more resources, particularly as we partner with Fisher and his people moving forward. Thanks, and have a great one.